Hello, my name's John Boo with the Oklahoma State eWIC program. Today we're going to be going through step-by-step procedures on how to do an eWIC transaction with an integrated point-of-sale system in your store as a cashier. I also want to let you know how important you are to the eWIC program. You and your associates are the final links in the chain of food delivery to the eWIC participant. Our clinics, our administration staff, our dietitians, nutritionists can all do their job perfectly, but if it falls apart in a check stand, the eWIC program has just lost its integrity. Oklahoma understands that and really understands how important the cashier is in providing eWIC benefits to our participants. So we thank you for that. Now I'd like to give you a brief history before we get started of eWIC. eWIC started in the 1970s. It's not an entitlement program, it's a nutritional program. It's for pregnant women, infants, and children 5 and under. Studies show that eWIC actually pays for itself. Give you some pointers on that. $1 spent on eWIC saves between $2 and $4 in Medicaid cost for newborns and their mothers. Infants born of eWIC mothers have better birth weights, larger head sizes, fewer premature births, and less incidence of fetal deaths. eWIC infants and children consume more iron, vitamin C, and other nutrients, resulting in improved growth and overall nutritional status. Children enrolled in eWIC are more likely to have regular medical care, immunizations, and better cognitive performance. First 5 years of a child's life is very important in their brain development, so by providing this nutrition, we're giving that child the best chance for success as they grow into adulthood. Let's get started. Welcome to the Oklahoma eWIC team. The Oklahoma eWIC program understands cashiers are extremely important in providing the correct foods to our eWIC participant. The cashier has an important role in maintaining the integrity of the eWIC program as they are the last contact with the eWIC participant. Cashiers' responsibility in maintaining a cheerful attitude towards customers while processing their eWIC transactions is very important. Other cashier duties are more than just taking payments and giving customer receipts. They include scanning groceries, weighing items properly, knowing special codes, bagging groceries correctly, answering customers' questions. Stores rely on their cashiers to provide service in a way that makes customers want to come back to your store again and again and again. A lot of weight on a cashier's shoulders. So your store and the state of Oklahoma really appreciates you and the job that you do. Now we're going to get into the step-by-step instructions on how to process an eWIC transaction using your register system in the store as a cashier. Number 1, how to start an eWIC transaction. eWIC participants are not required to have ID folders or other ID when using their eWIC card. All you're concerned about is, do they have the card and do they know the PIN number? I also want to say that eWIC participants gets all of the register receipts in a eWIC transaction. It is not necessary for eWIC items to be separated from other items purchased. Cashiers will scan an order as a mixed basket. No longer do we have to separate eWIC from the rest of the order. Now we can just scan the whole buggy at one time, and we'll talk about that a little bit further down. Before scanning begins, the cashier will not use the eWIC key for paper eWIC checks on the register. The cashier will start scanning as if it's a cash sale. Number 2, what's next after the cashier has finished scanning the order? Please remember that eWIC must always be processed first before other payment methods. Any other payment method would pay for the eWIC items. If they use their SNAP card or a credit card or cash, it's going to pay for those eWIC items. And the eWIC participants know this. So the order is going to be eWIC, SNAP, and then all your other forms of payment. Cashiers should press the subtotal key and wait for the eWIC participant to swipe their eWIC card and enter their PIN number. Now, once the customer swipes their eWIC card and enters their PIN number, you should see eWIC tender on your side in the check stand and be aware that this is a eWIC transaction. I want to emphasize never to ask a customer, is this a eWIC order? Now, it's okay for the state eWIC program for you to say, what method of payment are you using if you're not sure if this is a eWIC transaction or not, but check your store's policy before you do that. Most of the time, a customer will tell you that they have a eWIC order, but when they don't and they slide their card, You should see it on your screen that this is a WIC tender, and also try to notice what card they have in their hand as they swipe the first card to make payment, because as we're going to talk about further down in this presentation, you're going to need to get into what we call your WIC mode to process this WIC transaction. Once the WIC participant has entered their PIN, the cashier will ask the participant not to select yes or no on the PIN pad and explain they will need to discuss the participant's WIC benefits before moving forward. Now, this is what I meant by you getting into your WIC mode. You now know that this is a WIC transaction, and you need to keep the customer from hitting that yes or no button until we have gone through their WIC benefit. The next bullet point, while watching the customer to ensure they do not select yes or no on the PIN pad, the cashier will press the tender key. The cashier may need to enter the total amount displayed on the monitor depending on the register system. Now, I'm going to jump into 3 just a little bit here, but we'll still discuss 3 when we get to that point. But the reason why you don't want that customer to hit yes is because when they select yes, approving the WIC transaction is final. It cannot be changed. Items can't be voided. It can't be canceled or anything. It's final. So we want to go through their benefits before that. So what you're going to want to do, this is what I mean by getting in your WIC mode, tell the customer, please do not answer the yes or no question. We need to go over your WIC benefits with you. And I'm going to say this, always when you give a customer a negative, follow it up with a positive. We'll have some more examples of that in this presentation. You just told them not to hit yes or no. You don't want to leave it there. Follow that up with, we need to go over your WIC benefits with you. Don't turn your back on the customer when you go to pull a receipt out of the printer. Keep an eye on them because they may still be trying to hit that yes button, and you may have to say a second time, please do not answer the yes or no question. We got to go over your WIC benefits with you. So don't be afraid to say it again if you need to, because it's very important that they do not hit yes until we've discussed these WIC benefits in this transaction with this WIC participant before moving forward. Let's go to number 3. Having the WIC participant confirm the eWIC items. Now, once all the steps in 2, which is what we just talked about, you've hit the tender key, they've swiped their card, they've entered their PIN number, the yes or no questions popping up on the PIN pad. While this is happening, the eWIC validation report is printing in your printer. The cashier must provide the eWIC validation report to the WIC participant for their approval before moving forward. It is critical the cashier understands this report and can explain it to the WIC participant. And I have an example of this report in the next couple of slides that we'll go over in detail. But what this report shows at the top are the beginning benefits on the customer's card, and at the bottom are the items that eWIC has selected to pay for in this order. Now, the customer always knows when they come into your check stand what they think eWIC's going to pay for. We wouldn't have any idea that the customer thinks it's going to pay for something like Fruit Loops, right? So we've got to get the customer to tell us that. So I want to give you some tips on how to do that. You're going to want to take this validation report, show it face up to the customer, draw their eyes with your finger to the items that eWIC's going to pay for, and say this: these are the items that eWIC's going to pay for. Anything missing here is going to be on your cash balance. That turns the light bulb on. They realize they don't want to have to pay for something, and then they can say, hey, my cereal's not on there. And then you look over there and you see the Fruit Loops, and you say, well, Fruit Loops is not a WIC authorized item. Would you like for me to help you get a cereal that is WIC authorized? Let's move on to the next slide. Again, and I mentioned this, the top portion of this receipt will show the items and quantity of the WIC participant's current eWIC benefits, and the bottom portion shows the items that eWIC has selected to pay for. Cashier should explain to the customer that the items listed are items eWIC has selected to pay for, and any item not listed here will be on their cash balance. Now, I've said that twice now, and here's the reason why. If you take this validation report and you just stick it in front of a customer and say, does this look okay to you? They don't know why they're looking at that receipt. They don't really know what it is. They don't know what they're looking at. They're just in a hurry. They want to go home, so they're just going to say yes. And then if they hit yes on the PIN pad and something's wrong, You have these cash balances at the end of the order they don't want to pay for, and you don't know which item is causing the cash balance, and it's a real pain to figure it out. You've just shut your check stand down with all the customers standing behind your WIC participant trying to get checked out. They're just standing there staring at the WIC participant, and the whole thing's closed up. So this is really critical that we use this kind of language with the customer. It's going to be on their cash balance if these items are not listed, so that they understand why they're looking at this report and can tell you which items are missing. Because once again, the customer knows when they come up to the check stand which items they think eWIC's going to pay for. Next bullet point, if the WIC participant questions why an item is not listed to be paid for by eWIC, the cashier will use 3 tools to determine the reason. These 3 tools are WIC food card. The WIC food card will be taught in the next presentation. It is a food card that should be in every check stand. You should be familiar with it, and it shows all the items that are approved by the WIC program. Your second tool is the actual food item benefits. For example, their milk or their adult hot and cold cereal. Those are food benefits, or maybe their cash value benefits for fresh fruits and vegetables. And then the quantity of those benefits, number 3 right here. So let me give you an example. On the Fruit Loops we talked about, which is not a WIC item, the WIC food card is the tool you would use to realize why that item didn't go through, because it's not a WIC item. WIC item benefits. Customers trying to buy, let's say, Gerber Good Start Gentle baby formula, and you look at their benefits and they don't have any formula benefits whatsoever on their account. That would be the reason why WIC didn't pay for their formula. And on 3, I'll give you a really good example on quantity. I had a store call. Customer had 36 ounces of benefits for adult hot and cold cereal, and they were trying to buy 2 18-ounce boxes of Cheerios, and WIC was paying for 1 box and not the other, and they couldn't understand that. And they called me. It was a big basket of groceries too. And while I was talking on the phone, I said, just read down the receipt, item by item, everything that you have scanned. And they got down to about the 7th or 8th item, and they said, Malto Meal, 12 ounce. Well, what happened there was they scanned the Malto Meal. That took off 12 ounces of benefits. And then the first box of Cheerios of 18 ounces, that took off another 18 ounce of benefit. There's not enough quantity of the benefit left to pay for the second box of Cheerios. So that's how you can use these 3 tools to always tell you why WIC's paying for something or why it's not. The WIC food card, the benefits on the customer's card, and the quantity of those benefits. The next bullet point, changes can be made at this time. At this time, meaning before the customer selects yes. To correct a purchase by having the participant select no. This will allow you to avoid any items that did not scan, as well as WIC approved, and scan the correct WIC approved items. So you can make changes to the order at this time if they have not selected yes. Now, once any changes have been made to the order, the customer needs to swipe their card again, enter their PIN number. You'll get a new validation report again, and you go through the same process over again. You're going to show the new validation report to the customer, and you're going to say, ma'am, sir, we've made the corrections to the order. Now let's look at it. These are the items now listed that eWIC's going to pay for. Anything missing here is going to be on your cash balance. Now, do we have it right this time? So you're going to say something like that. And then once everybody's happy, the customer says, yeah, that's right, and you're convinced that the customer is happy that the WIC order is correct, then at that time, the customer hits yes, and the WIC order is final. Completing the eWIC transaction. Once the WIC participant has agreed with the eWIC benefits validation report, the WIC participant will select yes on the PIN pad, and the cashier will collect all other forms of payment for the remaining items. So the order of that again is eWIC goes first, then SNAP, and then all other methods of payment. Once the WIC participant selects yes, the eWIC transaction is final. Refunds and returns are not allowed. You can't go back. You can't cancel the transaction. You can't put benefits back on a customer's card. So this is the reason why it's so important to keep the customer from hitting yes until we go over those benefits. They review that validation report, and we fix any errors in the WIC transaction. After all forms of payment have been collected, the final receipt will print. The top portion will be a normal appearing receipt showing all items purchased and how they were paid for. The next selection will show the eWIC participants beginning eWIC benefits, and under that will list the items that eWIC did pay for. And then the bottom of that final receipt is the remaining balance on the customer's benefits after the transaction you just completed. So it's very important to give these receipts to the customer, and you may even tell the customer at the bottom of that receipt is their current benefits after the transaction, because that way next time they come to your store, they know what their benefits are. Now here is an actual picture of the eWIC benefits validation report that we're talking about. After the customer swipes their cards, this is what prints in your printer. Now when this prints, there hasn't been a transaction yet. This is just telling you what's getting ready to happen. Here, this is the customer's beginning benefits. This is the benefits they have. This is the quantity of the benefits. Remember the 3 tools? The benefits is one tool to use, the quantity is a second tool to use, and the food card is a third tool to use to always know why eWIC's paying for something, why it's not. Down here are the items that eWIC has selected to pay for out of the entire order that you've scanned. Here, we're just trying to buy one package of 8-ounce infant fruits and vegetables. It's Gerber. Okay, so this is the validation report. This is what you'd show to the participant and say these are the items that eWIC's going to pay for. Anything missing here is going to be on your cash balance. This is the final register receipt, a regular, typical register receipt. Again, this is the beginning balance of the customer's benefits and quantity of those benefits. The item eWIC did pay for, and if it was multiple items, it could most of the time be several. And at the very bottom of the receipt I mentioned earlier is the remaining benefits. Notice the beginning benefits on infant fruits and vegetables, 392 ounces, and down here 384 ounces minus the 8 ounces that eWIC paid for. Now I just want to point out that these quantities came out of our system for this presentation in very large numbers. You won't see these large numbers of quantity of benefit on a normal eWIC participant's card, okay? Now I put this in because I wanted to show you what we're looking for when we do mystery shops. The eWIC Services does periodic mystery shops of cashiers throughout the states for different chain stores and rural independent stores. And I checkbox the yes or no questions on what you would want your report to look like if you were being mystery shopped. Cashier greeted the customer. You want yes. Cashier was friendly to customer. You want yes. Cashier identified transaction as eWIC. You want yes. Explained and presented the utilized receipt. Now, this utilized receipt, that's the validation report we've been talking about that prints first. We call it utilized receipt here in the office, but that's the validation report. So did you explain and present the customer with the validation report that printed before they hit yes? And you want a yes on that. Did you prevent the customer from selecting yes before the review of that validation report? You would want yes. Cashier understands the eWIC food card. You want yes. Cashier was able to identify any problems with the eWIC transaction. You would want yes. Cashier assisted customer in receiving the correct items. You would want yes. Cashier identified why item was not selected by eWIC. You would want yes. And again, you would use your 3 tools, the benefits, the quantity of those benefits, and the food card to determine why an item was not selected by eWIC. Cashier maintained customers' eWIC privacy. You would want yes. Let me give you a couple examples of this. I was in a store doing a mystery shop, and I had some items that were not eWIC, and the cashier said, "Sir, looks like you got some items here the government didn't pay for." And I had 2 customers standing behind me in line. So that violated my eWIC privacy. Another example, I was in a store and I was trying to find a cashier and I didn't see any, and I looked over and there was this lady down at the other end that was in charge of self-checkout. She noticed I had eWIC items in my buggy and she hollered across the front end, "Sir, I can get your eWIC down here." And there was 2 or 3 customers standing right next to me. So that also violated my eWIC privacy. So be real careful that we maintain the customer's privacy as it relates to WIC and also SNAP. Cashier requested management assistance. This is not right or wrong either way. If you need management assistance, you should always call it. Cashier allowed purchase of an eligible item via eWIC. You would always want no on this question. A yes would be very severe. Cashier thanked customer at the end of the transaction. You would want a yes. So let me give you the ones here that would cause you to fail a mystery shop. The cashier never identified the transaction as an eWIC transaction. The cashier did not explain or present the validation report to the customer. The cashier did not prevent the customer from selecting yes before review of that validation report. The cashier does not understand the food card. The cashier was not able to identify the problem. The cashier was not able to identify why the item was not selected by eWIC, or the cashier allowed the purchase of an ineligible item via eWIC. Any of those items would cause a fail mystery shop. The first paragraph here is talking about account numbers. Basically what this is talking about, eWIC uses card with a magnetic strip. Some states use the chip card. Our card in Oklahoma has the magnetic strip. These magnetic strips do wear out, and sometimes they won't swipe properly. And if they don't, you can manually enter the number into your register, but never ask the customer for their PIN number. The PIN number is always private to the customer. So have your WIC participant enter the PIN number after you've manually entered the WIC card. But this is not what we want as standard practice. So if you have a WIC card where the magnetic strip is not swiping, instruct the WIC participant to go back to their clinics to get a new card. Down here is talking about the PIN number. When a WIC participant goes and applies for WIC, and a lot of times they're told 2 or 3 times, they have to get a PIN number set up before they go to the grocery store the first time. They may or may not get that done. And a lot of times they'll show up the very first time in your check stand and you'll say, please enter your PIN number, and they'll say, I don't have a PIN number. No one told me I had to have a PIN number. It happens. Or if they get locked out, if they enter their PIN number wrong 3 times, they'll be locked out for 24 hours. In either case, all they got to do to set up a PIN number or to reset their PIN number is to call the toll-free number on the back of their card to get their PIN number reset. So in short, if the card doesn't swipe because the magnetic strip is wore out, instruct the customer to call the clinic to get a new card. That's this top paragraph. If it's a PIN number issue, they call the phone number on the back of the card, which is this same number right here. Food benefits versus cash value benefits. Now, we showed some examples of food benefits on the validation report a minute ago. Food benefits are like adult hot and cold cereal, infant hot and cold cereal, infant fruits and vegetables, infant meats. And then cash value benefits is a cash amount for fresh fruits and vegetables or frozen fruits and vegetables. The benefit amount is usually $11, but some participants do get more than that, but the standard is $11 at this time. I do want to mention something about the cash value benefit while we're talking about this. That's been a big issue in the state of Oklahoma since we went eWIC, and that's when customer exceeds their cash value benefit. Actually, they get more fruits and vegetables than what they got benefit to pay for. Let me give you an example. Let's say on that validation report that we were looking at earlier that they had $10 in cash value benefit. Now, if you look down at the bottom of that where it shows the items that eWIC's going to pay for, produce items are always going to be grouped together, and it'll show you the amount that eWIC's going to pay for fresh fruits and vegetables or frozen fruits and vegetables. If they have $10 in benefit and the amount that eWIC's going to pay for is less than $10, then you're okay, they didn't go over. But if the amount that eWIC selected to pay for is exactly $10 and their benefit's also $10, now what's the chances they hit their benefit exactly on the penny? It's slim to none. So if it's $10 on the benefit and $10 on what eWIC's going to pay for, they went over their benefit and they're going to have a cash balance on that produce. And a lot of times in these cases, the customer doesn't have any money. So at this time, you're going to want to ask the customer, you're going to tell the customer they've gone over their cash value benefits. Do they want to pay the difference or take something off? Now, I'll give you a little tip. The item that caused the cash value benefit to go over the amount is going to be the last item you scanned in fruits and vegetables. It's going to be the last item listed on that validation report that caused it to go over. But let the customer decide what item to put back, or do they want to just pay the difference. Okay, mixed basket items down here just simply means what we've said earlier. We no longer have to separate eWIC from the rest of the groceries. We just scan the whole buggy. We can do eWIC, we can do SNAP, we can do non-foods, and we can do the whole transaction all at the same time, so long as we get the methods of payment in the correct order, which is eWIC first, then SNAP, and then all other methods of payments after that. Product lookup codes. This just simply means that the eWIC program is using the national POU system that your store's on for produce. This sentence here about POU code 4469, this is a generic POU code that we set up for items that stores in their produce departments package in-house. For example, you slice a watermelon or you make a fruit or vegetable tray or something like that that's eWIC eligible, but it doesn't have a POU code or it doesn't have a UPC code. You could sell it using 4469. Now, keep in mind, your store has to have this set up in their register as a POU code. Some stores don't have this set up, and some stores do. This next paragraph that's highlighted here is talking about items that are brand new on the market, brand new UPC codes or POU codes. And this is usually produce, fruits and vegetables. For example, in April, when strawberries come on the market every year, there's always brand new labels and brand new UPC codes every year. It doesn't have to be produce items. I mean, Cheerios could change the ounce of their box by a half an ounce, and that would create a new UPC code. But anyway, if your store is the first to get this item and you know the customer has the benefit and the quantity of the benefit or the cash value benefit for whatever item you're scanning, and you know this item should be a eWIC item but it's not going through, this just simply means it's not in the state APL system. This APL stands for eWIC Approved Product List, which every time you do a eWIC transaction, it's going out over the internet and comparing all the items to the APL list. So if you have an item like that, we've provided the management of your stores the information on how to get this information to us. Basically, all that has to happen is take a cell phone, take a picture of the item, take a picture of the UPC code, contact the eWIC office. We get that item put in the system, and it uploads to every store in the state overnight, and the next day every store in the state can sell that item. Last paragraph's talking about coupons, loyalty cards, and promotions. This just simply means eWIC participants get the same prices, benefits, and treatment as any other customer. They can use coupons, they can use your store's loyalty cards, promotions such as BOGOs, buy one get one free. They get that benefit as well. Your in-store ads, eWIC participants get those benefits as well. Voiding eWIC transactions, we touched on this earlier. Voiding an item from an order needs to occur before the customer selects yes. As you recall, before the customer hits yes and you're showing them that validation report, that's when you can void things or add things to fix the eWIC order. So that's the reason why if you're going to void something, it has to be done before you hit yes. Once the customer selects yes on the pin pad, the eWIC transaction is complete. After the eWIC transaction is complete, returns or refunds are not allowed. You cannot do anything to cancel that order and put benefits back on the customer's card. To give you an example of this, had a store that thought they got the transaction out of their register system, but they didn't get the benefits back on the customer's card because the customer had already hit yes on the pin pad. It was for, I think, 8 cans of baby formula. And eWIC had sent out payment to that store for the 8 cans of baby formula. We had to actually contact the store and say, hey, you owe this customer 8 cans of baby formula. The store had voided the transaction in their system but they didn't put the benefits back on the customer's card and therefore still owed the customer the 8 cans of baby formula. Reporting incidents and complaints. Bottom line, we take this very serious if a WIC participant comes in and verbally abuses a cashier. If they use any kind of foul language or become unruly in any way, please feel free to contact our office immediately to report fraud, any kind of abuse, or any complaints that y'all may have with a WIC participant. Please bring that to our attention. Again, we take verbal abuse towards a cashier very seriously, and we will do something about it as long as you provide us with that information. Okay, let's look at some customer service do's and don'ts. Let's look at do's. Be respectful and patient with every customer, no matter how they pay for their food. Call management assistance quickly when needed. Give customers the service you like to receive when shopping. Listen to customers as if you mean it. Report their concerns when you can. Let's talk about this one for a minute. This doesn't even have to be WIC related. If you have a customer that's mad about something in your check stand, if you want to stand there and argue with them, guess what? It's just going to escalate. So the best thing to do is just listen to the customer. Whatever it is, even though you know the customer's wrong, just listen to the customer, let them get it off their chest. Let the customer see in your face that you genuinely listened to them and you genuinely understood what they just said. You might have to repeat back a little bit what they just said. Now that's going to calm the customer down, and that's also going to gain respect for you to the customer. So now the customer is going to be more apt to listen to your solution to the problem. This works most of the time, and if it doesn't, of course, call a manager immediately. Speak in a pleasant tone and tell customers what can be done to solve a problem. Seek to exceed a customer's expectations and always thank customers for shopping at your store. The don'ts. Don't make rude faces or sounds when greeting customers. Let's talk about this one for just a minute. Okay, you're a brand new cashier. You don't have your confidence level up yet on doing a WIC transaction. This is going to be your first eWIC transaction. They push up a big old buggy and they say, I've got WIC. If you show in your face a lack of confidence or body language that you wish they hadn't come in your check stand, guess what? You just told that customer without saying a word that you wish they hadn't even come into your store. So always be conscientious of your facial expressions and your body language. Even though you might feel differently on the inside, you must hide that, especially until you get your confidence up on doing these WIC transactions. Don't talk loudly or use harsh language, even if customers do. You know, you might have someone that you know that you're taking care of, but what about the 2 or 3 customers behind them? They hear that, they could be very offended. Don't focus on what they cannot get. For example, you can't get that brand of juice and peanut butter here. You know, I mentioned this earlier, always follow a negative with a positive. Always give a customer a positive. So on the peanut butter, you'd say, sir, ma'am, this peanut butter is not WIC authorized. Would you like for me to help you find one that is? That's following up the negative with a positive. Don't say help needed with WIC on check stand 2 when calling for management assistance. That violates the WIC privacy. Just call for the manager and you can tell the manager what the situation is when they arrive. Don't decide for the customer what items to put back if the purchase exceeds the benefit balance. Let the customer decide that. And don't rush the customer or cut them off while talking. Now let's talk about program integrity. I'm just going to kind of read down through this with you. I think all of you know right from wrong, but this is important to go over. Program integrity is an important cashier role. What does program integrity mean? Below is some important information from the United States Department of Agriculture. Any form of fraud and abuse, such as using WIC benefits in a way other than mention or purpose for which they were intended, violates federal and state WIC program regulations and constitutes program violation. Making a verbal offer of sale to another individual or posting WIC food items or eWIC benefit cards for sale in print or online, such as Facebook or something like that, as well as allowing someone else to do so, is evidence of program abuse. Program fraud and abuse can occur in various ways, including but not limited to Cashiers charging the eWIC program for food items not given to an individual qualified to receive these benefits. Let's say you charge the customer for the Cheerios, but the customer didn't get them. That's what that's talking about. Cashier allowing the purchase of an ineligible or non-approved items. You may have a customer come up to your check stand with a box of Fruit Loops and a box of Cheerios, and they say, "Hey, will you scan the Cheerios and let me take home the Fruit Loops?" Can't do that. This one right here, cashier not following correct procedures in handling eWIC transaction. And we've gone through those procedures. Cashier allowing an eWIC card holder to receive cash or credit instead of food benefits selected in the store. Store managers not providing adequate supervision and or training of cashiers and other staff. It is important to discuss these and other issues with management, including consequences of non-compliance in handling eWIC transactions. Now let's do some frequently asked questions. When is sales tax charged on an eWIC cardholder? Basically, on WIC items that WIC's paying for, sales tax is never charged. Just the same thing with SNAP. Sales tax is never charged on anything SNAP's paying for. But let's say they exceed their cash value benefit on produce and they want to pay the difference. Well, then they would pay sales tax on the cash amount that they had to pay that they went over on their cash value benefit. So anything in the order that they paid for with cash, credit, or check is going to be taxable unless it's a tax exempt organization of some type. But sales tax is never charged on anything paid for by the WIC program. What if a WIC customer attempts to exchange WIC foods? Exchanges are never allowed in WIC, especially formula. There's going to be a lot of incidences where you'll have customers come in and try to exchange, let's say, Good Start Gentle for Gerber Good Start Soothe, for example. We can never allow that to happen. Or they can't exchange Cheerios for Wheaties or anything like that. You know, a different kind of milk. The only exception to this rule is if they get milk, they get home and it's sour, they can bring the sour milk back and exchange it for the exact milk they got the first time. Or let's say they get home with a box of cereal and they find that box of cereal's out of date. They can bring that box of cereal back for the exact box that they got. So if it's a 12-ounce box of Cheerios that's out of date, they can only exchange it for a 12-ounce box of Cheerios. Are rain checks or substitutions allowed? Absolutely not. I'll give you an example. Customer has 5 cans of baby formula on their benefits, and you only have 3 cans in the store. You can't charge them 5 cans, give them 3, and tell them, hey, we got a truck coming tomorrow. You can come back tomorrow and we'll give you the other 2 cans. What if they don't show up? You just had the taxpayers pay for 2 cans of formula that nobody got. So never grant a rain check to a WIC customer. What if the eWIC cardholder attempts to purchase the wrong food or formula? Just politely assist them in selecting the correct foods. But if you have a repeat offender, contact the manager so they can contact the WIC office. What should I do if a food item does not scan? We kind of covered this earlier. Check the error message and call a manager for assistance if needed. Probably go back to where we were talking about brand new UPCs and POUs that just came out on the market that's not in the state APL file, and you'll need to contact the WIC office with that item so we can get it in the system. What should I do if the eWIC benefit card is damaged or does not scan? If it doesn't swipe or if it's damaged, just have the participant go back to the clinic. They'll get a new card from the clinic. You can also manually enter the card number. I always have the customer enter their PIN number. And what if a lost eWIC card is found in your store? Just contact the WIC office at this number. Just write these numbers down, and I'll show you these numbers again at the very end so that in case you have questions, but just call us and we'll give you instructions on what to do with those found lost eWIC cards. Appreciate you listening and watching this presentation. If you got any questions or problems, please feel free to contact the WIC office at any time. Jot these numbers down and we'd be glad to help you.